Hi there, welcome to the Mindset Mentor. I'm your host, Tania Kolar, and you are listening to Sauga 960 AM. Well, first of all, I want to say happy Easter weekend. I hope you and your families are safe, happy, and doing well in the midst of a global pandemic. I know that it can be challenging to navigate, emotions and also expectations and what to do and how to handle, let's say, holidays or just every day now seems to be a challenge. Well, I'm delighted to welcome my guest in this hour, Dr. Gillian Mandich, who is an expert when it comes to health and wellness, who has some excellent practical tips on how to stay positive during COVID-19 and also how to really, help alleviate fear, anxiety. And at this time, fear and anxiety is running at an all-time high. We are experiencing adversity that we have never seen before. So it is really difficult to know what to do, when to do it, and what we can do to help ourselves and our loved ones get through this major adversity. And I fully believe that all great awakening is preceded by great adversity. So I believe that this is part of a global ascension, and we're being asked to rise, as a collective for the greater good of humanity. And there's so many things that we can do that can help us get through this and then come out of it in a way that we will all be better for it. So I'd love to say hello and welcome to my incredible guest, Dr. Gillian Mandich. It is such a pleasure having you join me. I know we've been meaning to do this show for a while, and I think the timing couldn't be better, of course, where people really now need the extra help.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. And you're absolutely right. Like right now, when our world seemingly feels like it's upside down, it's such an important time to talk about happiness, mental health, fear, anxiety. So I'm thrilled to be here with you today.
Oh, phenomenal. And exactly that. It feels like our world is literally coming apart. This is a time that nobody really has ever experienced before. So there is no model for us to look at and say, well, this is how, they did it at this time and we can get through it. This is so unique, so different. And we certainly need to understand what is considered normal, so to speak, in terms of our feelings, our expectations, and our behaviors. So fear and anxiety, huge emotional triggers right now for a lot of people, right? Our buttons are being pushed. And, we're experiencing, I think, a wide range of emotion. So first of all, I want to touch on that so that people can understand that they're not alone, because experiencing fear and anxiety at this time, I would imagine, would be a normal phenomenon.
Yeah, it is. And it absolutely is. I was just having a conversation with some colleagues of mine at the Canadian Mental Health Association, and they were saying that across the country right now, Canadians' levels of fear and anxiety are higher than normal. And I think it's perfectly understandable and reasonable to be feeling a wide variety of emotions right now. And the key piece of this is whatever you're feeling, knowing that it's okay and it's normal. I think sometimes when we're sitting with some of the more challenging emotions, right? When we're sitting with fear or sadness or uncertainty, it can feel uncomfortable. And sometimes we mistake uncomfortable for like bad, or we don't want it. And I really like a lot of these emotions serve as compasses for us, and they're helping us to tune into ourselves and what we're going through. And they're almost like guideposts to help us on this journey that we're on, trying to navigate our feelings, trying to do those things. And so number one, whatever you're feeling right now when you're listening, just knowing that it's okay. And there's so much stress and pressure in the world right now. We don't need to add to our own pile by feeling like what we're feeling is wrong. And, I think more than ever, this idea of self-compassion and acceptance of our feelings and our emotions now more than ever is so important when we're looking at how to take care of our mental health, of ourselves, and also our friends and our loved ones that aren't physically around us, but are emotionally around us, right?
Yeah. It is really important. And I think that a lot of people are experiencing these emotions maybe that are quite unfamiliar to them, and they haven't this, extreme, levels perhaps. And so, one thing that I really want to sort of differentiate is that having these emotions are one thing, but also, being positive is another thing. And so I think sometimes the confusion lies in that, well, if I have all of these emotions, that I can't be happy and I can't be positive, right? So we don't give ourselves permission to say, well, it's okay to find the positive elements in the day, because right now I am consumed by anxiety, or I'm consumed by fear or sadness, or whatever emotion really sort of dominates. So, can these coexist together?
Yeah, they absolutely can. And I was actually surprised to learn that. So when I first started studying happiness, that saying, like, you teach what you need to learn, right? So I thought, well, I want to be happy. I mean, we all want to be happy. So I might as well study it and figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's how my brain works. And so I really thought when I first started studying happiness that the goal was to figure out how to be happy all the time, to get rid of the more challenging emotions, get rid of anxiety, get rid of depressive feelings, get rid of sadness, and just be happy all the time. Like, I really thought that was the goal. And I was actually truly surprised to learn that that's not the goal. And when we look at healthy psychological functioning, we need this spectrum of emotions. It's like the palette of the human experience. And low moments, high moments, neutral moments, calm moments, excited moments, sad moments, that collectively is what makes a human experience. And that's, in terms of healthy psychological functioning, like I'm a happiness doctor. I study happiness, and I'm not happy all the time, nor would I suggest to anybody to be happy all the time. And I say this because I think it's so important I say it out loud for myself as a reminder, and for everybody to hear, because sometimes I feel like if we're not feeling really high or happy, we feel like we're not enough, or it's not good enough, or that emotion is wrong or bad. And that's absolutely not the case.
Yeah.
And so the way I look at it, and the way the research sort of suggests, in terms of if we want to prioritize happiness, what happens is a lot of our happiness is actually a skill-based learned behavior. So just like if you want to go to the gym and work out, over time you exercise your muscles and you get stronger. A lot of our happiness is the same way, where it's a skill that you actually build over time. And as you build the skill, when we can touch on later how to do that, as you build that skill, what happens is your lows get higher and your highs get higher. So it's not that you're getting rid of everything, but you just sort of have this uptrend where things are kind of all drifting in that direction. And when you're having moments of some of those more difficult feelings, and you've been practicing happiness, what happens is you don't marinate in those emotions for an extended period of time. We feel them fully, right? It's not about bottling it up or pushing it aside. It's about feeling them and then processing them and then continuing on. Okay. So I think now more than ever, because a lot of us are feeling all these strange emotions and things like that, which makes perfect sense. None of us have lived through a pandemic before. Yeah. None of us have been told you need to stay in your home and you can't go anywhere. You can't go to work. You can't see your family. You can't do these things. So of course we have this unprecedented time with all this uncertainty and strange new things happening. And even amongst that, though, we do still have an opportunity to start to train our brain to cultivate more of that skill of happiness. And I don't say that in a way where it's like, put on your rose-colored glasses and pretend like everything's okay.
It doesn't
absolutely
the fear and the anxiety, because it's real. I mean, those are real, and obviously varying levels of that for everybody. Everybody's individual. They process their emotions differently. They either let it go and escape in a certain way, or suppress it, or what have you. So it is a real challenge for many people. And so we're not saying, hey, this doesn't exist, ignore it, and as you say, put the rose-colored glasses on. But there is a way that we can navigate through it, and past it in a way that can really help benefit us immensely, right? By by helping us to understand that, as you say, this is temporary. And I always believe that all of life's challenges are temporary experiences, the good and the bad. And so when we're in that lower cycle, we will get to the opposite end of that cycle. And so, the good is coming, right? And then when things are perfectly beautiful and life is amazing, then, things will come in to challenge that a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Constantly evolving and constantly processing and dealing with different emotions, but that is the human experience. We are meant to have that vast range of emotion, and we need to honor that. But I totally agree with you in that, we don't want to stay there, as you say, marinate. You don't want to marinate in that moment, but I think it's so important to know that feel those emotions, but don't get trapped there for a long extended period of time, because I think the ability to want to stay there can be very high.
Yeah, and sometimes I find that when we tend to stay in those emotions, the switch goes from experiencing the emotion, like I'm feeling sad, to becoming the emotion, I am sad. And that's a very important distinction, because especially, I guess, for example, I'm feeling depressed today. I'm feeling anxious today, as opposed to, I am anxious or I am depressed. It's a difference in terms of, are we experiencing the emotion or are we becoming it? And when we tend to marinate in emotions, it's a slippery slope into that. And what happens then is we start to identify as that. And it becomes part of us, as opposed to us experiencing something. And I think that's a really key distinction, and to pay attention to in our languaging when we're talking about these different emotions. And, now, especially where we are having more FaceTimes and Zoom calls and things like that, because we can't physically connect with one another. Paying attention to the languaging we're using around describing what we're feeling is really important. The self-talk that we have in our head and what we're saying out loud.
Yeah, absolutely. And can you give us an example of what somebody might be saying in this particular moment, and how we can, help change the language pattern to our benefit?
Yeah, for sure. So, okay, I was talking to a friend last night, and we were talking about what was going on in the world, and she was saying, I feel so depressed about everything that's going on right now. And then she said that, and I said, yeah, like I'm experiencing that too. I can feel like the weight of everything, and I think about other people. And she's like, yeah, I'm just so depressed. I'm so depressed. And she said it like 5 or 6 times.
Okay.
And I said, well, are you depressed or are you feeling depressed? Because, and not to say that you can't, that like depression is not a thing, it absolutely is. But sometimes when we're in the moment, or anxiety might be a good example, right? I'm feeling very anxious versus I'm an anxious person. And sometimes, even to sort of take it even one step further, a lot of the time, it's not even what we're saying out loud, but it's the self-talk that we have in our head when we're labeling things. And even to the point where, like, for example, I'll hear someone say, happiness is a good emotion and anxiety is a bad emotion. And I really steer away from, and all the literature now is sort of encouraging to get away from labeling emotions as bad or good. They're different. Some of them are challenging, some of them are not. It's one of those things where even just putting that label on an emotion, if you feel like, oh, anxiety is a bad emotion, it could be a trigger. It could be like a compass navigating you. There's a lot of different ways. So it's not inherently good or bad. They're all just different. And when we start to think about things that way, it shifts our experience. Even like, I'll give you an example. I was listening to a podcast with this guy, Josh Waitzkin. There's a movie called Searching for Bobby Fischer, and it's about this chess prodigy. And so this is the real life Bobby Fischer was doing this interview, and he was talking about how he had a little boy, and every day they go outside and play. And he said, every day we'd look outside and we check the weather, and then we dress accordingly. And he said, one of the things that I was very clear with my son was I don't look outside, and if it's sunny, say, oh, it's a good day. And if it's raining, oh, it's a bad day, it's raining. He said, they're just different days. If it's raining, we put on our rain boots and we get our umbrella. If it's sunny, we might go without our jacket, but the weather isn't good or bad. It is just different weather. And the same thing when we think about emotions, with that same approach, it shifts our experience of what we're feeling, because then we don't have that good or bad label,
Yeah, it really is all about perception, right?
Yeah.
good or bad varies from person to person, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's a really great bit of advice. And also, I think in terms of the language patterning that we have, that negative self-talk, really key to tap into that, but also to watch out for, maybe some of those absolutes, right?
Yeah.
Or that creates a little bit more of that cognitive distortion and I always, get it wrong, or nothing ever works out, or this is never going to end. And I think a lot of people are thinking that right now, in the midst of this global pandemic, this is never going to end. But we have to question that. Is that true?
Mm-hmm.
There will be an end. There's always an end to something, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Takes a longer than expected, but we do have to look at what's true, what language we're using, and how we can better help ourselves in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody is thinking that right now, this is never going to get better. What can we say instead to help us?
Mm-hmm. So my motto right now is one day at a time, because I've been noticing for myself, like I've been writing a lot of scripts for different news outlets and things like that right now. And a lot of them I'm writing more for myself than for anyone else, truly, like, because I'm feeling all of these things, and I'm looking to the literature and I'm trying to figure out, okay, like how do I answer these questions? How do I cope? How do I do that? And for me, I can easily get in this mental space where I'm like, oh my goodness. And then I start thinking about all the repercussions of what's going on, and it can be very overwhelming. And then I have to keep reining myself back and being like, Gillian, one day at a time. Like, yes, like not to be naive or to put blinders on and not acknowledge what's going on. At the same time, there's so much uncertainty that we really don't know what's going to happen a month from now or 2 weeks from now. So there's no, like, to give my mental effort and energy to the unknown that I don't have enough data to even think about or realize what it is. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And we only, we have a finite amount of energy in a day. And more than ever, I'm really trying to take that energy and keep it and not waste it on these mental bike rides in my mind of all of the things that are going on right now. Yeah. And the reason, I just keep saying to myself, one day at a time, because I'm like, okay, today, what are the things that I need to do? What was going on? What am I feeling? And not being like, oh, my friend's wedding's in 2 weeks. Is that going to happen? What am I going to do? What happens if, like, these things? This is what our mind does, and it's completely normal.
Yeah.
And this is where we really have to become diligent about paying attention to our mind and becoming the director, not letting our mind run us. Mm-hmm. Having that discipline, mental discipline, to be able to direct our thoughts and not have these spirals of anxiety or these thoughts, because they're not serving us right now. And we already have enough stress and worry that we don't need to keep creating more stories in our head right now.
Yeah, totally agree with you. And that's an interesting, way to look at it, because it gives us some sort of control in a very uncontrolled environment. Yeah. Right, in that sense. So we're going to continue the conversation. We're going to take a tiny break right here on Sauga 960, back with the Mindset Mentor and Dr. Gillian Mandich with some great tips on how to stay positive and cope with fear and anxiety, and foster mental health during COVID-19, which of course is something that it has created so much mass tension, fear, anxiety. And there is a way that we can help ourselves and help our loved ones to navigate it as best as possible in this moment. And again, to rise above adversity. There is always good to come from our greatest challenges in life, and usually that takes a little bit of dissecting to understand what the lesson is, and the learning. It takes some time, and we're not at that moment just yet. There could be quite a time span before we understand why this is all happening, and find the greater good. But let's stay as positive as we can in these moments by taking it one day at a time. So we're going to be back after this break. Don't go anywhere. Hi there. Welcome back to the Mindset Mentor. I'm your host, Tania Kolar, and you're listening to Sauga 960 AM. Today, I'm really excited to have my special guest joining me, Dr. Gillian Mandich, who is an amazing health and wellness expert, really helping people to navigate some of the challenging moments in time to lead happier, more fulfilled lives. And I think at this time, Dr. Mandich, we need the help immensely. It's such an unprecedented time, in history in the world, and so many of us are left with emotions that are unfamiliar. We don't know how to handle them, and we could be, maybe emitting those emotions in a negative way to those around us. But let's talk about that, because how can we best handle our emotions in the middle of this pandemic where uncertainty is really a challenge? We don't know the what. And the problem is everyone thinks of the what ifs. Just before we took a break, you had mentioned that it's so important to take it day by day, and maybe even, hour by hour, minute by minute, if that can be helpful to someone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sometimes I love that you said that, sometimes even day by day feels daunting. It's kind of like when you go through a breakup and you're like, how, like in that immediate, what am I going to do? And then it's like, I can't even go day by day. It's like hour by hour. And then slowly over time, things start to shift. And it's the same thing right now. And like you were saying, like with other people, I think this is another major thing that I'm hearing a lot of from people is because we are now in physical isolation, if we are with a partner or loved ones or our children or maybe in-laws or our parents, whoever we're sort of quarantining with right now, if you are quarantining with someone, everybody's going through a lot right now. And then when you put everybody in the same small space, confine them there, you can't go anywhere. It's almost like this boiling pot that is like, it feels like it's going to explode sometimes. And so part of all of this is recognizing that, we don't live in bubbles, and our emotions and how we show up affect other people, and then other people with us as well. And part of our work right now is to try to figure out what's ours and what's not. Because everybody is processing things in a different way. Everybody has different levels of emotional intelligence. Everybody has different experiences. Everybody processes their emotions in their unique and different ways. And so part of the practice right now, I really think, is having compassion for ourselves and for other people, not taking things personally when a lot of times, especially they're not about them. Like, maybe your partner's feeling really stressed and they're sort of short and snippy with you, and you think it's something you did, but really they're just feeling really overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And so a lot of right now is that, right?
Financial stress. I mean, and these are real concerns, right? And they create and present real challenges. So I do think it's important to maintain that sense of compassion.
Yeah. And sometimes I think we don't even realize it. I might be short with my boyfriend and he didn't even do anything, but I was anxious or afraid, but I didn't even realize it. And then as we start to check in with our actions and our behaviors, we're like, oh, wow, I guess something's going on here, because that's not a normal reaction for me. And so right now it's a really interesting time of self-discovery and of getting in touch with some of these experiences and emotions that we might not have at the forefront all the time in our life. And when you start to get down to, like you said, things like financial pressures, if we're worried about our job, these sort of things, like it adds this whole element to it of survival and fear. And that is a real thing that many, many, many Canadians are experiencing right now.
And I think to your point, you had mentioned earlier again about how, stay in this moment, right? Because if we look at, the range, well, how long is this going to last? We don't know. There's that uncertainty. And so then it's like, wow, well, can I afford to pay the bills, for X amount of months, or, however long this is going to last. So, but if we just look at, all right, well, right now, are we safe? Do we have a roof over our heads? Do we have food? Right. I think is we have to look at those key safety factors and say, okay, so check, I've got that, I have this. And so now I can just breathe, take a moment to recognize that those are amazing things. And then we have to look at, okay, what the reality is as opposed to the what ifs. So what ifs that get us into a lot of trouble with our mindset that can overwhelm us. And so to be able to take a pause from that thinking, I think, is really, really important. And, you were talking about how we can develop the habit of happiness, right? Choosing to be happy, to develop that. And, that's like, everything with the mindset, right? Your mindset is a muscle that needs to be strengthened and conditioned. And I think at this time, it's so important to work on the mindset, to work on that, and to make choices in our day that can really help us. And so when we are in a confined space, quarantining with other people, that's probably going to cause a lot of, emotional triggers. And like, I need my own space. I wish I had my own space. I need some quiet, or, I want to watch something different, or I want quiet and I want to read. I want to, focus and I want to work from home. And there's so many external distractions that may, negate your intentions. And then there's the opposite of that, where people who are by themselves. So I also want to talk about that, because I feel that so many people are struggling with it from either side, again, whether they're alone or together. But for those who can feel that the isolation is too intense for them, what can they do to help themselves not feel alone, even though they are physically alone?
Yeah. This is a real thing, and loneliness actually can have a detrimental effect on our physical health. So much so that the sort of equivalent on our body can be like smoking or living with obesity. Like, there's a significant effect of loneliness long term. When you look at the research in terms of that. That being said, there are things that we can do, because even if we are physically alone, we don't need necessarily to feel lonely. So we can reach out and connect, because we don't have to physically be close to feel close. And that's a really important distinction to make, because on the other side of that, when we look at research coming out of Harvard, they found the number one predictor of both our long-term health and our happiness is social connection. So above how much money we make, above our gender, above our job, above how much money's in our bank, above all of these things, the number one thing is having at least one or two people in your life that are close friends, that you can go and confide in, and they can confide in you. And there's other research that shows that having a few of those close connections, when you're going through something very difficult, like a divorce or a job loss, or living through a trauma like we are right now, having those relationships acts like a buffer. So you're more resilient. You come out the better at the other side of it, much better. And the effects as you're going through it, both on a physical and a mental level, aren't as severe. So this is something that we can all do. We can all.
Okay, so what can we do then? So if we are right now, and we know the importance of social connection, how can we stay connected?
So we have to get creative. And what that means is, whether it's having a FaceTime breakfast with your friend, or having coffee and having a Zoom, or, I have a girlfriend that lives in Vancouver, and her and I will go for a walk, and I'll call my friend and she'll call me, and we'll go for a walk and talk together, even though we're across the country. So we can find other ways to connect with people. It's not easy. It requires effort, but that's the same as happiness. Happiness doesn't just happen to us. It's something that we have to practice and we have to work at. And so right now, more than ever, what we need to do, it's absolutely essential, is to prioritize the time to connect with other people. And that might feel weird, and it might be uncomfortable, and okay, so feel weird and feel uncomfortable, but now more than ever, for our health, physical health and mental health, we need to be connecting with one another. And it can be anything from even Maybe you're in a Facebook group with a whole bunch of moms and you're venting about what it's like to have your kids home 24/7, right? It could be that. And it doesn't have to be like an hour long heart to heart
Yeah.
conversation. Anything so that we can feel connected to each other. Maybe it's a family group text that you have in WhatsApp. It doesn't have to be face to face. Face to face is great, but it's just that feeling of being connected to other people. And we have to create it. Another thing that we can do is, because we have kind of those friends that, most of us that, you check in with or you talk to, but there's also a lot of people in our life that might not reach out.
Yes.
And we can reach out to them. And I think this is something when we think about, you were talking earlier about how much is going on that we don't have control over. This is something we can do. Maybe it's once a day, maybe it's every week. We think of a friend that we haven't talked to, or someone that we do know is quarantining alone, or maybe a grandparent, and reach out, pick up the phone, call them, send a message to invite them to join you for movie night, where you watch a movie together, but all over the phone. Or there's all sorts of different cool, creative things that we can do. And so instead of looking at the situation like, oh, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do that. When we flip, like you talked about, our mindset earlier into this place of opportunity to get creative, it can actually become kind of fun in a way to do. I downloaded, I gotta check what it's called, this app called House Party. Have you heard of this?
I have heard of it. My sister's using it for work. Every day they're on this. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It was cool. So you could like play Pictionary. So your friends go on the app too, and then you see the thing and then you draw it, but then they see what you're drawing on their screen. So there's all these cool things coming out right now that we can do different things.
Yeah, a friend of mine had joined a, world Scrabble kind of thing, right? So you're playing Scrabble with people across the world, right?
I play Boggle like that. Remember Boggle? Yeah.
Oh my God, funny! I love it. So yeah, I mean, this is an opportunity to get creative. I know for myself this weekend for Easter, I'm going to get together with family virtually. We're all going to create our own meal and sit down at the table and have dinner apart, right? But together.
Yep.
So, and I think even though we are considered to be distancing ourselves, right? I think that even though we're physically apart, this is a time where many of us are closer than ever. And it's such a wonderful lesson for all of us, I think. And what can we do? And I love your advice about, reaching out to people. So if you've been thinking about somebody, pick up the phone, contact them, send them a message, send them an invite to Zoom or to the house party or something, so that, because I think if you're thinking about them, there's a reason, and so reach out and let go of the ego and they should be contacting me first. At this time, I think it's so important to really value, ourselves and other people. That importance of self-value is very key. So the other day, and I'm by myself at home, so I'm not quarantining with everybody. It's me, myself, and I. Right? I'm having great days. I usually start my morning at the cafe, which is my kitchen. Yeah. my barista, she's pretty friendly, most of the time. She might be a little bit slow making my coffee, but she's great. No, it's funny because it's like I'm trying to create a little, environment that's fun, that's different. And to just also do things that, I'm honoring myself, that I don't need to have other people to be there. For example, a couple of days ago, it was my birthday. And so I had a little cake, and I sat at the table, I had a candle, I put some happy birthday music on, right? I had Louis Armstrong and Beyonce were singing me happy birthday. I was singing happy birthday, and I blew out the candle, and I had a little birthday party by myself. It was a birthday party of one, but I had a really great experience and it was fun. And so I didn't have that moment of like, oh, my birthday was terrible because I was alone. I made it a great birthday despite being alone, right? So we do have to find that creativity, which we all have. Everybody has creativity within them. So yeah, let's look for things that we can do or to uplift somebody else's day. And I think that's a really key thing at this time as well, that we can feel so much better well, we can help somebody, we can uplift them, whether it's, helping with their groceries, doing some shopping for them, if they're, not able, or anything. Like my niece, one of my nieces did, it was one of her friends' birthday, and she did a chalk drawing on his driveway. And I thought, well, that's really
Aw.
great. Isn't that's sweet? And just, even though you can't see that person and be physically around, you can still find ways to really make your presence known and your love for someone.
Mhm. I love that. And like your birthday, that's so beautiful. And like the thing is, if we're totally real, you had to choose that and you had to work. It's not like you just rolled over on your birthday and everything was wonderful. And I think that's a important piece right now to remember, is that it requires effort, and we have to choose to participate in that. And we have a choice every day of how we want to participate in our life, and we do. And if we don't choose, then we're choosing not to participate and to be a passive consumer of our life. And that's not to say that there's some days where you're feeling really down and low and you want to wear your sweatpants and eat ice cream and thing, and cool. And then there's other days where you want to choose to have a good birthday, and so you made it happen. And I love that, because I think sometimes, especially when we look on social media and say you posted a photo of you with your cake, right? And everyone's like, oh, look, she's having a wonderful birthday by yourself. But you don't see the backstory, right? You don't see all of the things that go into that exact moment. And it's a natural tendency to compare people's highlight reel to the backstory of our life. And I think this is another piece where we have to keep reminding ourselves that we're just seeing snippets of what people are choosing. And we're all choosing, and we all have a choice.
Yeah, we judge ourselves. It's like, oh, well, they're happier, they're more successful, they're this, they're that. But you're right, we don't see the backstory. And so I think we have an expectation that we need to, increase our level of productivity, so to speak. I actually want to talk about that, because a lot of people, I think there's a split, a little bit of a divide. Should I be productive or should I not? Am I going to binge watch all day long? And do I give myself that permission to just sort of relax, or should I be productive? And do I have to paint the house? And do I have to organize every room? And do I have to clean up the storage because I have time on my hands now? Let's talk about that a little.
I love that you brought this up, because there seems to be two camps, right? There's the one camp where I read it. I think it was like a tweet on Twitter or a post on Facebook or something. It said like, if you don't come out of this quarantine speaking a new language or learning a new skill or something, then you've wasted your time. And I read that and I was like, like, I don't know if I agree with that, because there's no shoulds. This is an unprecedented time. There is no best or worst way to get through this. Just like how we talked about, there's no necessarily good or bad weather days. They're different. All of us are going to go through this in different ways. What we do know, when we look in terms of the research of happiness, one of the factors that does contribute to happiness is having purpose or meaning in our life. And so potentially, if someone, say, for example, has been laid off and their work was a big part of their purpose or meaning, that could be missing. And maybe they find that by learning a new language or picking up woodworking, or I'm actually going to try to teach myself how to knit this weekend.
Wow.
So maybe we're creating that purpose or that meaning or that in those ways, but it doesn't mean that we have to. It could be our purpose right now could be existing and taking care of ourselves and going for a walk every day. So it'll be different for different people. But I think, number one, there was already so much stress and pressure going on that adding to that, these like shoulds, I'm doing like air quotes with my fingers, right? These shoulds that we need to be doing, or this idea that we have to be productive right now, I think that needs to just like go right out the window, because that is setting ourselves up potentially for failure, or for feeling like we're not good enough or that we didn't do enough. And we don't need to add to that pile right now. If doing things is bringing you joy and it's giving you something to look forward to when you get out of bed in the morning, then awesome. And if it's not, like, we don't need to feel the pressure to be doing those things. And this is, again, when we talked earlier about looking to social media and all these things, and we see these people that have cleaned out their garage and they've reorganized their bookshelf by color or whatever, right? And we're like, mine's a mess. It doesn't need to be that.
I totally agree with you. I think it's really key to do what makes you happy. Find the
Mm-hmm.
happiness in the moment. So if that means that you are going to stay in your jammies all day long and you don't want to think about, putting makeup on, then great, do that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you wake up and having a shower and getting dressed and putting makeup on it makes you feel good, then do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I personally love makeup. So I enjoy putting makeup on. And I don't put it on every day, that's for sure. But I do enjoy makeup. So it makes me feel better. Right. And
Yeah.
there's days that I just want to like be comfortable and cozy and I don't want to get dressed. I've got my sweats on and that's great because it's like whatever I feel like in that moment, I think is
Mm-hmm.
important. And to take away that stress of having to do because we live in a world where we are so focused on doing, having,
Yes.
being. And so we get overwhelmed by that. And in a time like this, we still think that we need to catch up. And then you have people that are like, well, they've got so much time on their hands and they should be doing more. Well, no, again, there's that should. Take that word out of the vocabulary, right? And it's more like I could be doing this if I choose to do this, right? If this makes me happy.
Exactly. And like we live in a culture where busy is glorified.
Yeah.
And now more than ever, I don't know about you, but for myself, it's been this wake up call of, hold on a second, my entire schedule has been cleared. I have no more meetings to attend, like physically. All of these like things that I thought my schedule was so full immediately just wiped right out. And it makes you, if you would have asked me a month ago, were so important and I needed to rush to do all these things. It's really making me question a lot of those things. And I know it is for a lot of people because now all those things are gone. And guess what? Life still goes on. And
Mhm.
it's really sharpening the focus on our life and starting to help us realize what truly is important and what are those things and what are those other things that are busy work that we're doing or things that we're doing because of obligation or out of guilt for not doing them. And that's a really powerful practice to start examining in our own lives. What are those things that have gone that we don't miss or that we're happy that they're not happening? Because these are kind of light bulb moments, little things for us to think about when we think about our life moving forward after quarantine.
Yeah, 100%. This is definitely, a great time of self-reflection that we've been forced into,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak, right? In a time that, otherwise we may not have even considered, thinking about what is important to us. So, again, that's a choice where we now can dissect that and look for the good. And,
Yeah.
moving forward now we can take the parts that we want, right, that we do find value in, that really deeply matter
Mm-hmm.
to us, and maybe eliminate, or get rid of some of the ones that are not serving us, that we just sort of fell into a habit and a pattern and tolerated for a long period of time. So we don't have too much time left. So I really want to talk about some tools that people can take to help with their mental health, coping with this
Mm-hmm.
crazy time, again, huge fear, huge anxiety. And so what tools can we do maybe on a daily basis that can guide us?
Yes, absolutely. So I think it's really important, like we talked about earlier, this control. What are the things today that I can control? And so some of those things that we've touched on a couple, right? Where we're taking time for ourselves and we're prioritizing that. Another thing is it's really important when it's safe to get outside every day. Go
Mhm.
for a walk, get outside, get some fresh air, moving our bodies because when we stay home, we're active creatures. Movement is an important piece of being human.
Mhm.
And that trying to find ways to still move our bodies is really important for both our physical health and our mental health. Obviously, doing it when it's safe to do so. Um, the other thing is, I think we really have to be mindful of our environment and restricting the news that we're watching.
Yes.
Um, this is something where I know for myself, I really had to put some tight boundaries on the news because I mean, there's research that shows watching even 2 or 3 minutes of upsetting news or news that you find anxiety causing in the morning can
Mhm.
affect your mood for up to 12 hours.
Wow. Yeah.
So it isn't just an in the moment thing. There really is a residue of it, and it's
Yeah.
often not a good residue.
And I'll also
So what I,
reading it or listening to the news at night, that's playing in your mind all night.
uh-huh,
Hmm.
yes. What I recommend is choosing 1 or 2 times in the day to check in with the news because it's still important to stay informed and to know what's going on. But beyond those key pieces of information, we really don't need more than that right now. So pick 1 or 2 times, not before bedtime, to your point. Absolutely. If it's going to happen at bedtime, you'll find out in the morning. You don't need to let it take away your sleep.
Yeah.
And beyond that, also making sure that those, so 1 or 2 times a day and 2 or 3 sources, that's it. And those sources need to be credible. So whether that's getting it from your local public health unit, the government of Canada, the World Health Organization, that's it. Really making sure more than ever, it's important that we aren't getting secondhand information or reading sort of personal opinions, that sort of thing. We need to go to the experts, to the credible sources, and that's it. So that is something we can really all do. And if you're listening right now, it's do a test for yourself. Check in with how you feel. Turn on the news or however you're going to get your news, and start to pay attention to your breathing as the news continues. And as soon as you start to feel that anxiety, your breath getting short, your chest feeling tight, it's time to turn it off. That's it. Like that's a really
Good.
big, big piece right now.
Mm.
Um, the other thing is, I think more than ever, we need to look for the heroes in what's going on because there's so much negative, scary, frightening things going on. And our brain, we're actually born with this innate thing called the negativity bias in our brain, where our brain was trained and it evolved this way out of survival when we used to always have to look for predators and things on the hunt because we could have died. Nowadays in our society, that's not the case, but our brain still does that. It's like if you receive 10 compliments today and one person says one bad thing about you, what's the thing you're thinking about when you put your head on the
Yeah,
pillow at night?
totally. Hmm.
Right? So this is the thing, it's called the negativity bias, and we actually have to work to rewire our brain to think differently. And now is a great opportunity to do that because you turn on the news and say, for example, they're showing clips of the hospital and they're going through all the death rates or how many new infections. At the same time, on that exact same news clip, you see frontline workers, doctors, nurses, healthcare professionals working tirelessly, putting themselves potentially at risk to save lives. Exact same news story, 2 different perspectives of what you're looking at. So really trying to turn our focus to looking towards the good right now more than ever is a powerful practice. And the good part is over time, it actually gets easier. It's like gratitude. Over time, it becomes easier and you'll start to even notice in your everyday language, you're talking about what you're grateful for. Right now, by choosing to focus on the good, looking for the heroes, looking for those positive things, looking for the people that are helping people that can't go shopping, looking for those warm, heartfelt moments. I think more than ever, we need to keep reminding ourselves and looking for those things, you know?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's so important to harvest the good because the good and the bad are always there. They exist simultaneously. So again,
Mm-hmm.
if we focus, we'll find that. So really important. And is there one last tip that you'd like to give everyone?
Yeah, I think looking for or creating what I call anchors of normalcy.
Hmm.
So everything is so upside down right now, and our world is so different. So finding certain routines or rituals that we used to do that we can still do kind of gives us that feeling of familiarity. And right now, that's a really good thing for us to create. So say, for example, you always wash your sheets on Sunday. And now you're at home and you could wash them on a Wednesday morning if you want. But you always used to do laundry on Sunday. Keep doing it on Sunday. Or if you always used to have a big family dinner, then still have that dinner, but maybe it's virtual, like how you were saying with your family. Like looking for those things that we used to do that we still can do. Maybe it's a certain dish you like to make or things like that. It's more important than ever to still try to create some structure, some routine, and find those little glimmers of our old life
Mhm.
now, because that it just it gives you comfort and security. And we all need, those are like basic things we need, right? We need safety, we need shelter, we need security. And so those can help to create some of those feelings, which is really important in terms of the hierarchy of our needs, trying to address some of that.
Oh, I love that. And that could be as simple as, having a shower at the same time
Yes.
of the day, right? Or just
Yeah.
a shower, period, full stop.
Mhm.
Right? I think
Yeah.
we can easily be derailed from our routine and that
Big time.
right of our day. So excellent advice. And unfortunately, we're out of time. I wish we had more time, but I want to thank you so much for joining us and helping the listeners to navigate an extremely challenging time that we are all unfamiliar with. And the tools and tips that you've provided, I think, can be so helpful. And I want to thank you for being here, taking the time to join me via Zoom. We are social distancing, but thank you for making an impact.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for having these conversations because, it really, the questions are where the magic comes out of. So I thank you for having me and for the work that you do on your show because it touches so many lives, myself included. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And I'd love to do this again with you. So again,
Yes, please.
stay safe, my friend. Always a pleasure chatting with you. And I look forward to it. So stay safe, be well, and stay positive and happy. All right, that's the wrap for the Mindset Mentor here on Sauga 960. Make sure you tune in next Saturday at 11 a.m. And until then, work on your mindset. Choose to be happy. Find the happiness in your day to help us navigate this challenging time. Stay healthy and safe, my friends, and we'll see you next Saturday.